Good evening and welcome to the Operation Smooth podcast. I've been a New York Jets fan since 1982, and this 2025 season was yet another in a long line of nightmare seasons for me, and of course for the millions of New York Jets fans all around the world. I'm not going to get into the Buffalo game too much. There was no real expectation as far as the Buffalo game. I didn't expect the team to be competitive. You also take into the account the fact that it was the last game ever at Orchard Park, Ralph Wilson Stadium, Highmark Stadium, whatever you want to call it. With all the emotion going on there, I think you probably could have thrown some of the all-time great teams out there against Buffalo this past Sunday. I don't think a lot of all-time great teams would have beaten Buffalo under the circumstances. Um, it's some of the other games that the Jets played this season. Obviously, you get off to the 0-7 start. You pull off a miracle win at Cincinnati, a win that you probably didn't deserve. Uh, then you go a couple of weeks later, you go against the Cleveland Browns, and you were able to beat them. A great performance by Will McDonald, 4 sacks. Quite frankly, in my opinion, the only time that Will McDonald really showed up this season. Then you lose another game, and then you get your last win of the season, a dramatic win against the Atlanta Falcons. Uh, and for all it's worth, that was probably the beginning of the end for Raheem Morris, who got fired yesterday. Um, if I'm being honest with you, the only this is going to sound crazy. The only time that the Jets look dominant this season, as sad as it was the first preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. That was the only that was the only dominant win. The Cincinnati win was by a point. The Cleveland win was by 7. The Falcons was by 3 points. If you watch that first preseason game, hey, Justin Fields looked good. You're like, okay, we might have something here. And no, we didn't. The obviously I'm always bothered anytime the Jets lose to the Miami Dolphins. It's personal between me and the Miami Dolphins, and that goes back to that 1982 season and that 1982 AFC Championship game. They quit. Well, I'm not going to say quit. They got the brakes beat off of them against Buffalo the first game. They got the doors blown off of them by the Cowboys in Week 5 to go 0-5 in that 7-game losing streak. I think for the most part they were rather competitive in the other losses. Should have won the Tampa Bay game in Week 3. Obviously, should have won against the Steelers on opening day. That opening day loss was basically a preview of the rest of the season because the defense could not get it done. And I'll get to that in a second. But probably the most egregious loss, the one that really just really upset me more than anything, was not this loss to Buffalo, but last week's loss to the New England Patriots. That one, more than any other game this season, reminded me of the New York Jets of the mid 90s, of the 1995 season and 1996 season, in which they finished 3-13 and 1-15, respectively. For context, I had to go back to 1984. In 1984, I was 8 years old, and at that time we were living off of Knickerbocker Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. So, and I just started the 4th grade. I wasn't in that school long, but the story that I'm about to tell you has to do with the Patriots game, and I'll explain in a second. Um, my mom would meet me out from the school to pick me up and walk me home. Well, I decided at 8 years old that I was going to go hang out with my homeboys, and we started kind of walking around the neighborhood, a neighborhood that I didn't know. I didn't know where the heck I was at, and so I walk with my homeboys, and next thing you know, my mom's waiting for me at school, and she's hot. She is pissed off. And this is 1984. And for those of you that grew up in the 80s, in those days, your mom or dad or both parents could whoop kids in front of people and nobody would bat an eye. It was a completely different time back then. You could whoop your kids in public with no repercussions. So because I was not where I was supposed to be, my mom slapped me in front of my homeboys and she slapped me into 1990. That's what the Patriots did a little over a week ago to the Jets. They slapped them, backhanded them, and the Jets just stood there and took it. I mean, the Patriots pimp slapping them. What was the score at halftime? 35-3. Beyond embarrassing, beyond disappointing. And I don't hate the Patriots like I do the Dolphins, but it's never enjoyable when you know that there's going to be Patriots fans, doing a lot of talking. Thankfully for me, where I live nowadays, there's really no Patriots fans in the area that I live, but I know a couple here and there, and so it sucked. Uh, Aaron Glenn just looked this year over his head, looked lost. The offense was not great. It wasn't very good. Justin Fields, his career, it might be over after what transpired this season. Tyrod Taylor, uh, I think Tyrod Taylor's probably going to retire this year. And then you got Brady Cook, who wasn't cooking at all, but a lot of it, I'm not going to blame Brady Cook in some ways. I mean, he he was thrown into an untenable situation, and Brady Cook is basically Brooks Bollinger 20 years later. And if you go back to the '05 Jets, you remember Brooks Bollinger came in for Chad Pennington, and then he had the nerve to say that he was a starting quarterback in the NFL. But forget Brooks Bollinger. Now I'll say this: the only real bright spot for the Jets, it's two bright spots. Obviously, it's Brees Hall. He did get the first 1,000-yard season rushing by a Jet since Chris Ivory in 2015. I think that that might have been maybe the worst thing that happened to Brees Hall, because I think the Jets need to do right by Brees Hall and just let him walk, let him go to another team. But that's not going to happen. I think the Jets are going to franchise him, and maybe depending on how things go in 2026, they might trade him mid-season if things don't go great. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt again. He had a couple of injury-plagued seasons. His rookie season, he was looking great till he got hurt the first time. Hopefully, next season he won't get hurt. But I think the Jets need to do right by him and let him go, because this might not get a whole lot better next season. But we'll hold judgment on that. The bright spot for the Jets on offense, you got Gary Wilson. Hopefully he'll be 100% from his injury. Only 362, what is it, 362 receiving yards or 462 passing yards. And what was that, week 6, in which he went out and didn't come back? And you could not get another receiver to catch for 500 yards. Good God, that's embarrassing. And that's an indictment on Aaron Glenn, an indictment on Tanner Engstrom, and an indictment on the lack of talent at the wide receiver position, which was not addressed before the season. However, props to Darren Muji for the acquisition of Adonai Mitchell in that Sauce Gardner trade. Props for the acquisition of John Mechie, even though I don't think John Mechie is that great, but it's the start. The Brights, Mason Taylor, he was hurt late in the year. The jury's still out on him. But I'll say this, the bright spot is the offensive line. You win games in the trenches, and I've always stated that. You've got Olaf Ashanu at left tackle, and you've got the man who should be a Rookie of the Year candidate, Armand Membu, at right tackle, the rookie out of Missouri. Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, they hit a home. I'll give them that. They did hit a home run with that draft pick. Joe Tippmann is solid at right guard. Josh Myers, I'm going to be honest, he's not, He's not Joe Fields at center. He's not definitely not Hall of Famer Kevin Mawai, who played for the Jets from '98 to 2005, and he's certainly not the late great Nick Mangold. Rest in peace. But Josh Myers, he is serviceable. So it was good that the Jets brought him back for 2 more years, and then maybe in the draft this year get a draft a center or possibly get another center in free agency. Tyler Lindenbaum from the Ravens, I believe, is a free agent. I'll get to John Harbaugh in a little bit. Um, then you have John Simpson, the former Raven, the left guard. He was good last year. I don't think he was that great this year. I think the Jets should probably move on from John Simpson and again look for an offensive tackle, excuse me, offensive guard, left guard specifically should probably find his replacement either in the draft or in free agency. What free agent offensive tackle is going to want to come to the Jets? Um, that's another story. And then, of course, I addressed the issue of the quarterback. But I'm going to get off the quarterback part for a second. New York Jets fans have been obsessed with finding a franchise quarterback. The franchise quarterback that we have not had probably, obviously, since Joe Namath. Aaron Rodgers, franchise quarterback, but we know what happened with him in that 2023 season opener against Buffalo. Who knows what could have happened if Aaron Rodgers had played a full season and had never got hurt. And it was pretty much all downhill from there. And that marriage was pretty much doomed, especially with what happened last season. Chad Pennington was a very good quarterback, but he couldn't throw the ball past 15 yards. But he brought us a lot of great memories. There was before him Vinny Testaverde. Vinny Testaverde came to the Jets after the 1997 season. Back then, I was not too happy about it. I thought we could have gotten better. I actually thought Glenn Foley, for those of you old enough to remember, I actually thought that Glenn Foley was the answer. But things didn't work out that way. He started the first 2 games of the '98 season. The Jets lost both of those games. Bill Parcells pulled the plug, started Vinny Testaverde, and 1998 was one of the greatest seasons, definitely in my lifetime as a Jets fan. 1 game short of the Super Bowl. And then there's been a mixture of other quarterbacks. I will admit, I thought that Mark Sanchez was the answer. I thought that he was in a perfect system with the ground and pound philosophy of Rex Ryan, and they should have never gotten away from that. The first mistake that they made, they should have never let go of Braylon Edwards, but that's probably another video for another day. I understand the whole thing with the franchise quarterback. I understand trying to tank to get the number one pick, which was not going to happen. The Raiders are going to get that pick. Here's my thing, though. I get the franchise quarterback part, but have you seen this Jets defense this in 2025? This is the worst defense that I have seen in my 40 plus years as a Jets fan. And I'm going to tell you, in all my years, there's been some bad Jets defenses. Okay. Those Jets defenses post the sack exchange, especially the secondary, were awful. The Jets teams of those mid '90s, those Rich Coat type defenses, they were awful. We've had some good defenses, have some great defenses, but this one is the worst. No interceptions this year. That is one of the most damning stats in the history of the NFL. That a team can go 17 games with no interceptions. I mean, you had all those years before 1978 where they played 14 games. You had the 16-game seasons. Now you have a 17-game season, and your team cannot get an interception. And that's an indictment on the secondary. That's an indictment on the whole defense. Here's the other part that people don't talk about. We focused on the no interceptions. They have no pass rush. Okay? The New York Jets this season in 2025 had only 26 sacks this year. That is the second worst in the league. second only to the 49ers. The 49ers only had 20 sacks. If you take the 4-sack game that Will McDonald had against Cleveland, you have 22 sacks by the entire Jets team. Myles Garrett by himself has more than that. That's embarrassing. Now, the 49ers, they have a much better team and a damn good defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh, our former coach. Look at them. But the New York Jets only 26 sacks. So and that's an indictment on Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, and Harrison Phillips. I'm willing to give Jermaine Johnson a pass because this is his first year coming off the Achilles injury he had against Tennessee in the second game of the 2024 season. But there's no excuse for Will McDonald. So I think what the Jets need to do, let's just say that Dante Moore does not come out. Let's say he stays at Oregon. Okay. Obviously, the Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza. So you've got the 2 number 1 picks, first round picks in the first round, and 2 second round picks. You got to go all defense. I understand. I get the franchise quarterback part, but that defense is god awful. And that's the big advantage that Mark Sanchez had when he got drafted. He had basically a ready-made team. Had the greatest offensive line in Jets history with DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Alan Faneca, Nick Mangold, Brandon Moore, Damian Woody. You had Thomas Jones the first year, and then the second year you had LaDainian Tomlinson. Eventually, you made the trade for Braylon Edwards. Then you get Santonio Holmes for the second year. So you had offensive firepower. You had Dustin Keller, who at that particular time he was all right. He was an all right tight end. And then you had a stellar defense. Obviously, you had Darrelle Revis. Then you get Cromartie. The first year in 2009, they had Lito Shepherd, who unfortunately was towards the tail end of his career. But Lito Shepherd was a pretty good cornerback in his time. You bring in Bart Scott from Baltimore. You had Calvin Pace. Then you bring in Jason Taylor. Let's see who were. Then you had Chris Jenkins from Carolina. Unfortunately, he was hurt both of those seasons, so that really kind of messed up the Jets' pass rush. But what I'm saying is, Eric Mangini, not Rex Ryan, Eric Mangini built that Jets team. Again, another video for another day. But what I'm trying to say is, you got in 2025, you had the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos had 68 sacks this year. That is tied for the second most all time with the 1985 Bears. Okay. The record for most team sacks is not the 85 Bears, it's the 84 Bears. The 1984 Bears had 72 sacks. The 85 Bears had 68. The Denver Broncos this year managed to tie that. So look at where the Broncos at, the number 1 seed in the AFC. You got to be able to rush the passer, and you've got to be able to stop the run, and you got to get interceptions. People, I made a video a few months ago about Sauce Gardner only having 3 interceptions, and some people came at me saying, well, interceptions are not important. The Jets had no interceptions this year. Tell me that interceptions are not important. If you get an interception, that means the ball goes to you. You get a turnover. How are interceptions not important? How are sacks not important? You tell me. So, again, I'm hearing rumors that Dante Moore might leave Oregon to go to the NFL. There's these unsubstantiated rumors that he will only come out if it's guaranteed that the Raiders draft him. So if that were to, let's say that happens, Dante Moore comes out, declares for the NFL draft. The Raiders basically promise him that they'll draft him. Then we'll get Fernando Mendoza. So hey, I'm cool with that. But the Raiders will probably draft Mendoza. Let's say Dante Moore comes out, we'll probably get Dante Moore. But the Jets need to have a plan B in case Dante Moore decides to go back to Oregon. And that plan B needs to be with both of those first round picks, go defense, and then with the 2 second round picks, go defense. Also, I forgot the linebackers. The Jets need to completely overhaul the linebacking core. Kiko Magua, the rookie out of Miami, the jury's kind of still out on him. He had a couple of bright moments there, so he'll be back next season. Jamie and Sherwood, gotta go, bro. Quincy Williams has been a good servant for the Jets. He's got to go. If you watch, these guys cannot cover anything. Okay, sure, they can stop the run a little bit, but in pass coverage, oh my Lord. I mean, they were getting burned week after week after week. We need some linebackers that, yeah, of course, need middle linebackers to stop the run, but we need some outside linebackers that can cover tight ends and can cover slot receivers. I mean, good Lord. And then the secondary, Brandon Stevens, golly, he got off to a horrible start. He kind of leveled out, but I'm sorry, Brandon Stevens is not the answer. But the Jets are on the hook with him for another couple of years, unfortunately. I really like AZ Thomas. However, I am concerned with the injuries. He did get a concussion. I think it was the first New England game or the somewhere in there. And I know he's had some injury issues. I really hope that in 2026 and beyond, those injury issues are behind AZ Thomas. I like him. He's physical. He gets after it. You know, I like him. I liked him the moment he got drafted. Also, you have to take into consideration the long history of Florida State of producing. Florida State has produced some stellar cornerbacks. Deion Sanders, Corey Simon, uh, Terrell Buckley for the old heads out there, Jalen Ramsey. Florida State is, it's DB University. So I really hope that AZ Thomas can get his injury issues behind him. The other guy that I like, then you got Andre Cisco. He was injured. So, and he wasn't all that great. Tony Adams, he got to go. It's time to move on from Tony Adams. The other bright spot, yeah, he's a rookie. He missed tackles and whatever. But Malachi Moore, I like Malachi Moore. I think Malachi Moore has got a great future ahead of him. I think he's that dude. I like it. I like that. Um, so I got to give props to Darren Muji. He hit a home run with that draft pick as well. Mason Taylor, kind of the jury's still out on him. So I think overall in the draft, I think it was. I think that he did pretty good. The Tyler Barron guy, no, no, sir. But he was a seventh round pick, so you know, whatever. Seventh rounders. They. Well, I'm sorry, they tend not to pan out. Uh, just a horrible season. Justin Fields was the leading receiver, leading passer, 1,259 yards. Brees Hall, like I stated, 1,065 yards. So if Brees Hall wants to leave, that might be a strike against him. Garrett Wilson, only 395 receiving yards. Oh man, this has probably been the worst year ever for me as a Jets fan, and I lived through those Jets teams of the mid '90s. John Harbaugh got fired by the Baltimore Ravens. I watched that game Sunday night. I knew whoever lost that game was going to get fired, and so it ended up being John Harbaugh. So basically, the Ravens have chosen Lamar Jackson over John Harbaugh. Hey, listen, John Harbaugh is to blame, bro. You got to feed Derrick Henry. And they didn't feed Derrick Henry enough. And by the time they started feeding him the ball, it was too late. So John Harbaugh does bear some responsibility for that. I know that the Jets have committed to Aaron Glenn for another season. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm torn because of Aaron Glenn's connections to the New York Jets, one of the great Jets players of all time. But if I'm the New York Jets, if I'm Woody Johnson, if I'm Darren Mucci, I am blowing up John Harbaugh's phone and his whatever social media he might have. And I'm going to ask him, hey, dude, what would it take, Mr. Harbaugh, for you to become the next head coach of the New York Jets? I'm sorry, Aaron Glenn, but after what happened this season, no. I'm sorry, no. I'm calling John Harbaugh, and I'm trying to gauge his interest. The likelihood of him becoming the next Jets head coach is pretty much slim to none, but I would do my due diligence and I'd give it a shot. I'd shoot my shot. Hey, Mr. Harbaugh, We'll shine your shoes. We'll wash your car. We'll paint your house every day. Whatever it takes to bring John Harbaugh on board. He is going to bring you instant credibility. Yeah, and in the big games, I know he won that Super Bowl all those years ago. The big games, he's been kind of suspect, but at least he's been able to get to some big games. Okay. And when you are an organization that has not been in the playoffs in over 15 years, bro, beggars can't be choosers. Will John Harbaugh be the next Jets coach? No. But again, I'm doing my due diligence and I'm gonna offer him whatever for him to come to the New York Jets. Oh, one more thing. I do want to mention another bright spot for the Jets this season. We traded Quinn Williams to the Dallas Cowboys, and we acquired a young man named Jawan Briggs, who I think he was either a second or third round pick from the Cleveland Browns, and I believe he's in his second season. Let me check that. Okay, no, he was drafted in the seventh round by Cleveland in the 2024 draft, and so we were able to get him in a trade. We gave Cleveland a seventh round pick, and we got a 2026. No, we gave Cleveland a 2026 sixth rounder, and well, hold on, let me check that. Okay, we gave Cleveland a 2026 sixth round pick. We got Jawan Briggs and a seventh round pick. You know what? I know that Darren Mucci was given praise for the Sauce Gardner trade, which, boy, that ended up being a great, great trade. It did, bro. I mean, there's no way you can miss on two first round picks. You just can't. And then you got Adonai Mitchell in that trade. But I'm gonna say this: the best acquisition that Darren Mooney has gotten this year has made was getting Jawan Briggs. Jawan Briggs he's nice, man. You got to put some other good, defensive ends and around him, and I think Jawan Briggs can flourish. I'm not gonna say that he's gonna be as good as Quinn Williams or better than Quinn Williams, but Jawan Briggs, man, you could tell he got a fire, and I mean he was making plays. He was making a couple of plays a game. So um, props to Darren Muji for that. I did see the press conference. Oh, man, Aaron Glenn, man. You know, when Barack Obama took office, his hair was all black, and by the time Barack Obama left office, his hair was all white. Aaron Glenn went through 8 years of being the president of the United States in 1 year. I mean, you could just see his body language. I mean, bro, man, Aaron Glenn looked like he did a trilogy of boxing with Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I mean, you could just see it in his eyes, in his like, yeah, this year. I mean, my man looking rough. My man looking rough. Well, hey, bro, you're a New York Jet. You're built for this shit. So now let's see. Now let's see if you can turn it around. Then you've got a tough schedule next year. You're playing the AFC West. So you've got Kansas City. Kansas City may not be as good as they've been, but we'll see. But you're going to go up against Denver, and you're going to go up against the Chargers next season. And then let's see, who are the Jets' 2026 opponents? Let me check that this in just a second before I head out. And then of course you got the Patriots, you got the Bills, the Dolphins. Yeah, them too, because the Dolphins swept us this season. Okay, but you're going to take on the NFC Central. So you're taking on the AFC West and the NFC Central. So you're taking on a good Bears team. The Lions, I'm sure, will bounce back. And then you got the Green Bay Packers. that NFC Central, the toughest division in football. I'm sure Minnesota will improve as well. Man, I know Cleveland. You got the Raiders. You'll probably win those games. You'll probably beat Tennessee. You should beat Arizona. So you're looking at 4 wins just off the jump right there. But it all depends on what you do with the roster this year and how those 2 first-round picks evolve, and also the 2 second-round picks. Which again, uh, you got to go defense. If you, I mean, I know they're not going to replace Aaron Glenn, but if you do, you should probably look at Brian Flores, who I think the Jets should have hired in the first place last season. I think Brian Flores would be a perfect fit. And if you can't get Brian Flores, doggone it, promote Chris Banjo. Look at that special teams. Austin McNamara looks like he's going to be the Jets punter for the next 15 years. Nick Folk, even though he's twice Austin McNamara's age, he had a great season as the kicker. He might retire, but I think they should try to bring him back. And then Isaiah Williams, after he got cut, he was a bright spot. He was a great kick returner. Probably should put him in as a slot receiver. So there's some talent there with the Jets. It's just the scheme is bad. Michael Clemens, get him out of my sight. And just this roster needs a complete overhaul. So those are just kind of my thoughts on the 2025 Jets season. Again, it was a nightmare, and I know I went all over the place with this video, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can. Again, do your due diligence, Woody Johnson and Darren Muji, and call John Harbaugh. Do it. Maybe that's why Aaron Glenn had that look on his face. Maybe he kind of knew, okay, they're gonna fire John Harbaugh. This might be the end of the line. That's probably what I mean, you should have seen Aaron Glenn in that press conference. He tried to, he did man up and take the blame for the season as he should. But yeah, you could see in his body language, like, man, yeah, the man looks beat down. He really does. But looks like Aaron Glenn is going to get another chance, which I understand, but at the same time, I don't. I'm torn with it. But we'll see what happens. And I'll be making some more New York Jets videos. This is the Operation Smooth podcast. Like, comment, subscribe.